Captain Lee Min-ho pressed his face against the thick glass window of the asteroid colony, watching the empty darkness of space. His eyes were tired from years of watching and waiting. 200 years had passed since the big alien armies almost killed every human in the galaxy. Now only small groups of humans were left, hiding in forgotten places where no one would think to look. The asteroid they lived in was old and cold. It had been carved out by machines long ago, turned into a home for 3,000 humans who had nowhere else to go. The walls were made of metal and rock, and the air always smelled a little bit like machine oil and recycled water. Children who were born here had never seen a real planet with grass and trees. They only knew these narrow hallways and small rooms lit by dim lights. Min-ho had been captain of this place for 15 years. His father had been captain before him, and his grandfather before that. Each generation learned the same hard truth. Humans were not welcome in this galaxy anymore. The big alien alliance called the Hegemony Coalition had decided long ago that humans were too dangerous to be allowed to live freely. "Captain, something is coming," said Lieutenant Park Ji-woo, as she ran into the control room. Her young face was pale with fear. She was only 22 years old and had spent her whole life learning to hide from the aliens who wanted to kill her people. Min-ho felt his heart start beating faster. He walked quickly to the main computer screen where green dots and lines showed what was happening in the space around their hidden home. There on the screen were 5 large ships moving toward them. The ships were long and dark, with the twisted metal shapes that all hegemony ships had. "How did they find us?" whispered Commander Kim Tae-sung, an older man with gray hair who had been hiding for 40 years. His hands shook as he looked at the screen. Min-ho knew the answer even though he did not want to say it. Someone had told the aliens where they were. Maybe it was an accident, maybe someone got caught and had to talk to save their own life. It did not matter now. What mattered was that death was coming for them in those 5 dark ships. All around the control room, people started moving faster and talking in worried voices. Some wanted to run away in their small ships, but there was nowhere to go that the big alien ships could not catch them. Others wanted to fight, but their weapons were old and weak compared to what the hegemony had. Min-ho closed his eyes and thought about his daughter who lived in this place. She was only 8 years old and loved to draw pictures of flowers she had never seen. He thought about all the children here who would never grow up if he made the wrong choice now. "Sir, we could try to talk to them," said Ji-woo. "Maybe if we surrender, they will let some of us live." Everyone in the room knew this was not true. The hegemony did not let humans live. They had a simple rule about humans: kill them all. They believed humans were like a disease that would spread and cause problems if even a few were left alive. Min-ho walked to a special panel on the wall that had been covered by a metal plate for many years. His father had shown him this panel when he became captain and told him to only use it when there was no other choice. Behind the metal plate was a single red button that no one had ever pressed. "What is that?" asked Tae-sung. "Something my grandfather helped build before I was born," Min-ho said as he used a special key to unlock the metal plate. "He said it was for the day when we had nothing left to lose." The red button looked small and simple, but Min-ho knew it was connected to something much bigger. His grandfather had been part of a secret group of humans who had prepared for this day. While everyone thought the humans were all dead or hiding helplessly, some had been working on a plan that would take 200 years to be ready. Outside their asteroid, the alien ships were getting closer. Soon they would start shooting their powerful weapons and turn the asteroid into pieces of rock floating in space. Min-ho looked around the room at his people. Good people who had done nothing wrong except be born human in a galaxy that hated them. He pressed the red button. Deep inside the asteroid, machines that had been sleeping for decades suddenly woke up. A signal began to travel through space, moving faster than light itself, reaching out to places no one knew existed. The signal was simple but important. It was time. Far away in hidden corners of the galaxy, other humans received the signal. People who had been waiting their whole lives for this moment stood up and began to move. Ships that had been buried under ice and rock started their engines. Weapons that had been building themselves in secret places powered up for the first time. The aliens in their dark ships thought they were coming to destroy the last weak humans. They had no idea they were about to meet something completely different. something that had been growing stronger in the darkness for 200 years. Admiral Song Hye-jin felt the signal reach her ship like electricity running through her body. She had been waiting for this moment for 35 years, living in the cold darkness of the Blackstone Nebula where no alien ship dared to travel. Around her, the bridge of her hidden warship suddenly came alive with lights and sounds as her crew prepared for what they had trained their entire lives to do. "Signal confirmed, Admiral," said Captain Yoon Suk-min, his voice steady despite the excitement in his eyes. "All sleeping cells are responding. The Prometheus network is waking up." Hye-jin smiled for the first time in months. The Prometheus network was humanity's greatest secret, a web of hidden bases, automated shipyards, and weapon stations spread across the galaxy like invisible spider webs. For 200 years, while the aliens celebrated their victory over humanity, machines had been quietly building ships and weapons in places no one would ever think to look. In the asteroid belt of the Kronos system, massive doors opened in what looked like ordinary space rocks. Inside were shipyards that had been working without rest for decades, building vessels with technology far beyond what the galaxy remembered humans having. The ships were sleek and dark, covered in armor that could bend light around itself to become invisible. Captain Lee Soo-min watched from the command chair of one of these new ships as it emerged from its hiding place for the first time. The ship was called the Ghostwalker, and it was nothing like the old human vessels that the aliens had destroyed long ago. This ship could move through space without leaving any trace, and its weapons could tear through the strongest alien armor, like paper. "All systems are working perfectly," reported his engineer, a young woman named Kim Hana, who had been born inside the hidden shipyard and had never seen natural sunlight. "The quantum drive is ready, and the stealth systems are active." Thousands of light years away in the dead system that aliens called the graveyard, another secret began to reveal itself. What looked like empty space suddenly filled with massive structures, space stations that had been invisible for generations. These stations had been growing slowly, adding new sections and weapons while powered by the energy of dying stars. Colonel Park Min-jung commanded one of these hidden fortresses. She had lived her entire life in this place, training soldiers who were born to fight a war that had been planned before they existed. Her people were not like the humans the aliens remembered. They were harder, faster, and more focused than any human had ever been. "Open the weapon bays," she ordered as her fortress revealed itself to the galaxy. "Let them see what we have become." The fortress was enormous, bigger than most alien cities, and covered with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. But it was not alone. Across the galaxy, dozens of similar fortresses were appearing, each one carefully placed where it could protect human colonies and attack alien strongholds. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Thane Korvax of the Hegemony Coalition watched his screens with growing confusion and fear. His sensors were showing impossible things, huge human ships appearing where there should be nothing, weapons platforms emerging from empty space, and worst of all, signals coming from places where humans were supposed to be extinct. "This cannot be real," he said to his officers. "Our records show we destroyed all human military capability 200 years ago." His intelligence officer, a tall alien with blue skin and too many arms, was studying the data with growing alarm. "Sir, these ships are using technology we have never seen before. Their weapons are more powerful than anything in our fleet, and their armor seems to be able to absorb our energy attacks." Korvax felt fear growing in his chest. The Hegemony had spent 2 centuries believing they were the strongest force in the galaxy. They had destroyed the humans because they were afraid of what humans might become if left alone. Now it seemed like their worst fears were coming true. Lieutenant Choi So-young sat in the command center of a hidden base built inside a moon that everyone thought was dead. Around her, hundreds of screens showed the locations of every Hegemony ship and base in this part of the galaxy. Her job was to coordinate the attacks that were about to begin, making sure that every human strike happened at exactly the right time. "All units are in position," she reported to Admiral Hye-jin through a communication system that the aliens could not detect or block. "We are ready to begin the first phase." "Understood," came Hye-jin's voice through the speakers. "Remember, we are not here for revenge. We are here to teach them that humans cannot be safely ignored. Across the galaxy, human ships that had been hidden for generations began to move. They struck at alien supply lines, communication centers, and isolated outposts with precision that seemed impossible. Each attack was perfectly timed to support the others, as if all the human forces were controlled by a single mind. The aliens who had thought they ruled the galaxy suddenly found themselves fighting an enemy they did not understand. These were not the desperate, emotional humans they remembered. These were patient hunters who had spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment. In the darkness between stars, more signals continued to spread, waking up machines and people who had been waiting for their chance to show the galaxy what humanity had become. Commander Oh Jae-hyun moved through the dark hallways of the alien fortress, like a shadow that had learned to walk. His team of 12 humans followed behind him, their footsteps making no sound on the metal floor. They wore black suits that made them nearly invisible, and their faces were covered by masks that helped them see in the dark and breathe the alien air. Jae-hyun had been born for this moment. His parents had raised him in a secret training facility, hidden deep underground on a frozen planet. From the time he could walk, he had learned to fight, to hide, and to kill without making a sound. He was part of a special group called the Void Wraiths, humans who had been trained to be perfect soldiers. "Target is 50 meters ahead," whispered Sergeant Kim Yoo-jin through the communication device in his ear. She was watching from outside, the fortress through a telescope that could see through walls. 2 guards by the door, both armed with plasma rifles. Jae-hyun made a hand signal to his team. 2 of his soldiers moved forward like cats hunting mice. The alien guards never saw them coming. In seconds, both guards were unconscious on the floor, their weapons taken away. "Door is clear," reported Corporal Lee Dong-wook as he used a small electronic device to unlock the heavy metal door. "No alarms have been triggered." Inside the fortress, Admiral Korvax was studying reports from across the galaxy, and none of them were good. Human forces were attacking everywhere at once, striking with impossible coordination. His own fortress was supposed to be safe. It was protected by the strongest shields and had thousands of soldiers inside. "Sir, we are detecting some kind of interference with our communication systems," reported his communications officer. "We cannot contact our ships in the outer system." Korvax felt his blood turn cold. "What kind of interference?" "Unknown, sir. It is like something is blocking our signals, but our sensors show nothing there." What Korvax did not know was that Captain Park Ji-min was sitting in a cloaked ship just outside his fortress, using advanced jamming technology to cut off all communication. She had been waiting in the same spot for 3 days, living on energy bars and recycled water, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "All communication channels are blocked," she reported to Commander Jae-hyun. "You are invisible to them now." Jae-hyun and his team moved deeper into the fortress, past sleeping quarters where alien soldiers dreamed of easy victories, past weapons storage rooms filled with guns that would never be fired. They had studied the plans of this fortress for months, memorizing every hallway and every room. In the main computer center, Lieutenant Choi So-young was already at work. She had entered the fortress through the air vents 2 hours before Jae-hyun's team arrived. Her job was to hack into the alien computers and steal all their secret information. Her fingers moved across the keyboard faster than the alien computers could respond. "I am downloading their fleet positions," she whispered into her communicator. "They have ships hidden in 17 different systems, but not anymore." The information she was stealing was being sent instantly to every human commander across the galaxy. Within minutes, Admiral Song Hye-jin would know the location of every enemy ship, and human forces would be moving to attack them all at the same time. Back on his command ship, Admiral Korvax was beginning to understand that something was very wrong. His sensors showed strange readings throughout his fortress, life signs that appeared and disappeared, energy patterns that made no sense, and worst of all, his computer systems were acting strangely. "Sir, someone is accessing our central database," reported his chief technician, a nervous alien with too many eyes. "But there is no one in the computer room." "Send a security team to check," Korvax ordered, but deep down he knew it was already too late. The security team that ran to the computer room found nothing but empty hallways and the smell of something that might have been human. Lieutenant Choi So-young had finished her work and disappeared back into the air vents, leaving no trace that she had ever been there. Commander Jae-hyun reached his target, Admiral Korvax's private office where the most important military secrets were kept. He used a small device to melt through the locked door, then stepped inside the room where the enemy leader kept his most valuable information. Package secured, he reported as he copied files from Korvax's personal computer. Extraction in 30 seconds. Outside the fortress, Captain Park Ji-min started her ship's engines. Ready for pickup, she said. All teams prepare for immediate departure. In less than 5 minutes, all the human soldiers were gone, vanished into the darkness of space as quietly as they had arrived. They left behind no bodies, no broken equipment, and no sign that they had ever been there. The only evidence of their visit was the missing information from the alien computers. Admiral Korvax stared at his empty computer files and felt fear like he had never known before. These humans were not the wild, emotional fighters his people had defeated long ago. They were something far more dangerous, patient, organized, and completely unified in their purpose. Across the galaxy, similar operations were happening at the same time, each one perfectly coordinated with all the others. The humans were fighting like a single organism with thousands of hands, and the aliens were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake 200 years ago. Grand Admiral Kang Do-hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the largest human fleet that had been assembled in 300 years. Ships stretched as far as his eyes could see. Thousands of vessels that had been building themselves in secret for generations. Each ship was sleek and powerful, covered in armor that seemed to drink in the light of nearby stars. Before them hung the hegemony's greatest stronghold, Fortress Prime, a massive space station the size of a small moon. It was protected by energy shields that could stop the weapons of entire fleets, and it contained enough soldiers and weapons to conquer 100 worlds. The aliens believed it could never be destroyed. All ships report ready for battle, said Captain Bae Yoon-ji from her position at the communication station. She had grown up on a hidden world where children learned mathematics by calculating weapons trajectories and studied history by memorizing the names of every human world the aliens had destroyed. Do-hyun opened a channel that connected him to every human ship in the fleet. Remember, he said in a calm voice that carried to thousands of his people, we are not here for revenge. We are here to teach a lesson that the galaxy will never forget. Inside Fortress Prime, Admiral Korvax watched the human fleet approach and felt his hands shake with fear. His fortress had shields that had never been broken, weapons that could destroy planets, and 50,000 of the hegemony's best soldiers. But something about the way the human ships moved made him feel like prey being hunted by predators. Sir, they are not attacking, reported his weapons officer. They are just waiting. The human fleet had stopped just outside the range of the fortress guns, floating in perfect formation like a pack of wolves surrounding their prey. For long minutes, nothing happened. The silence was more terrifying than any battle cry could have been. Then the attack began, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human ships moved together like dancers performing a perfectly rehearsed dance. Their weapons fired in patterns so precise that each shot supported every other shot, creating holes in the fortress shields that grew larger with each passing second. Major Shin Yu-jin commanded a squadron of fighter ships that darted between the fortress weapon platforms like angry wasps. Her pilots had trained their entire lives for this moment, flying ships that could change direction faster than the alien gunners could aim. They destroyed weapon after weapon with surgical precision. Shield generators on the north side are down, she reported as her fighters completed another perfect attack run. Moving to target the power stations, the fortress shields flickered and died section by section. The aliens inside fired their massive guns desperately, but the human ships seemed to know exactly where each shot would go before it was fired. They danced between the energy beams like they could see the future. Lieutenant Colonel Park Min-jung led the boarding parties that broke through the fortress hull once the shields were down. Her soldiers moved through the alien corridors with the same deadly precision their fleet had shown in space. They captured rather than killed whenever possible, forcing their enemies to surrender instead of fighting to the death. Section 7 is secure, she reported as another group of alien soldiers threw down their weapons rather than face her assault team. Prisoners are being processed according to protocol. The aliens who surrendered found themselves treated better than they had expected. The humans gave them food and medical care, but more importantly, they showed them something that shook the aliens to their core, the true size of the human fleet. Through the fortress windows, captured aliens could see ships stretching beyond the horizon of space, vessels that had been building themselves in secret for 200 years. Admiral Korvax was among the last to be captured. He found himself in a small room facing Commander Oh Jae-hyun, the same human who had infiltrated his previous fortress. Korvax expected to be tortured or killed, but instead, Jae-hyun simply showed him a holographic map of the galaxy. "Do you see these red dots?" Jae-hyun asked, pointing to thousands of markers scattered across the star map. "Each one is a human base or fleet that your people never knew existed. We have been building this for 200 years while you celebrated our defeat." Korvax stared at the map in horror. There were more red dots than there were stars in some sectors. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We destroyed you. We hunted down every human ship and colony." "You destroyed the humans you could see," Jae-hyun replied. "But we learned to become invisible. We learned patience. Most importantly, we learned that the galaxy would never leave us in peace, so we had to become strong enough that peace would not matter." Captain Lee Soo-min coordinated the surrender of the fortress defense fleets from his command ship. One by one, alien commanders chose to give up rather than face destruction. Word was spreading through the hegemony forces that resistance was hopeless. The humans were too well prepared, too well coordinated, and too determined to be stopped. The battle for Fortress Prime lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, the hegemony's greatest stronghold belonged to humanity, and every alien in the galaxy understood that the balance of power had changed forever. The humans were no longer hiding. They were no longer running. They had become something the galaxy had never seen before, a unified force that thought in terms of centuries and planned for forever. Fleet Admiral Han Ji-min stood in the great hall of what had once been the hegemony's capital building. The massive room was filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy, aliens who had come to hear what humanity planned to do with their newfound power. Some came as former enemies seeking mercy, others as neutral observers hoping to understand this new reality. The hall itself told the story of what had changed. Where once alien overlords had sat on thrones of crystal and metal, now simple chairs were arranged in circles where everyone could see each other as equals. The walls that had once displayed symbols of conquest now showed star maps marking trade routes and peaceful colonies. 200 years ago, your leaders tried to break us, Jimin said, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the vast room. They believed we were too dangerous to be allowed to live freely in this galaxy. They were not entirely wrong. A ripple of fear moved through the assembled aliens. Many had expected threats or demands for revenge. Instead, they heard something more unsettling: honesty. We were dangerous because we refused to accept that might makes right, Jimin continued. We were dangerous because we believed that different species could live together without one ruling over all the others. Your leaders saw this as weakness. They chose to teach us strength instead. In the back of the hall, former Admiral Korvax sat with other captured hegemony officers. He had spent weeks in human custody, expecting execution at any moment. Instead, he had been fed, given medical care, and shown the true scope of what humanity had built during their years of hiding. The knowledge was more terrifying than any torture could have been. Major Shin Yu-jin worked at a desk in the building's administrative wing, processing requests from former hegemony worlds that wanted to join the new human coalition. The requests came in faster than her team could handle them. Entire star systems asking to be allowed to govern themselves under human protection, rather than face the chaos that was spreading through former hegemony space. The Altair system has agreed to all terms, she reported to Jimin through their communication system. They are offering to share their agricultural technology in exchange for protection from raiders. This was the pattern across the galaxy. Species that surrendered quickly found themselves welcomed as equal partners in humanity's growing coalition. They kept their own governments, their own customs, and their own worlds. All humanity asked, in return, was that they follow the same simple rules. No species would be allowed to conquer or destroy another. Captain, Park Ji-min commanded one of the human fleets that patrolled former hegemony space, hunting down the warlords and pirates who had emerged from the power vacuum. Her ships worked alongside vessels from a dozen different species, former enemies, who had chosen cooperation over destruction. Pirate fleet detected in the Rigel sector, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Kim Hana. 3 alien species are requesting our assistance. Set course for Rigel, Park Ji-min ordered. Signal our coalition partners, we move together. The battle was swift and decisive. The pirates had expected to face divided, frightened worlds. Instead, they found a unified fleet that combined human tactical precision with the best technology and knowledge from across the galaxy. The pirates surrendered without firing a shot, but not everyone chose cooperation. In the Outer Rim territories, several alien factions had banded together to resist the new order. They called themselves the Liberation Front and claimed they were fighting to free the galaxy from human oppression. Their leader was a former hegemony general named Vextar, who had escaped capture during the fall of Fortress Prime. Colonel O. Jae-hyun received orders to deal with this threat. His void wraiths had become something more than just soldiers. They were now peacekeepers who specialized in ending conflicts before they could spread. But some conflicts could only be ended through superior force. Intelligence reports indicate they have built a stronghold in the void reaches. His intelligence officer reported, they are gathering ships and weapons preparing for a major offensive. Jae-hyun studied the tactical data with the same careful attention he had once given to infiltrating enemy bases. How many civilian populations are in the area? 17. Colonies, sir. Mixed species, mostly refugees from former hegemony oppression. Then we end this quickly, Jae-hyun decided, before they can threaten innocent people. The operation against the Liberation Front was a masterpiece of precision warfare. Human forces struck the rebel stronghold with overwhelming force, while simultaneously evacuating every civilian in the region to safety. The rebels found themselves facing the full weight of human military might, not the desperate refugees they remembered, but a unified civilization that had learned to wage war as an art form. General Vextar was captured alive and brought before Fleet Admiral Ji-min. Like Admiral Korvax before him, he expected death or torture. Instead, he found himself in a comfortable room with a view of the stars, being offered food and medical treatment. "Why do you not kill me?" he asked through a translator device. Ji-min smiled sadly. "Because we learned something during our years of hiding, General. We learned that killing your enemies only creates more enemies, but showing them a better way to live, that can change everything." Within a year, even Vextar's rebellion had transformed into a legitimate political movement within the human coalition, representing species who wanted slower integration into the new galactic order. Democracy, it seemed, was more powerful than any weapon humanity had ever built. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some things, once broken and reforged, become truly unstoppable.